Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why are my hormones suddenly so out of control? Like, I could eat whatever I wanted in my 20s or 30s, but now just looking at a plate of pasta packs on an automatic 5 pounds, right? Or why has sleep suddenly become some kind of holy grail? So elusive, I'd have better luck finding my lost AirPod in my couch cushion. And P.S. When did mood swings become so unpredictable, even I don't know what I'm going to say next? Sound familiar? Well, welcome to the Hormone Club. A club none of us asked to join, by the way. Because perimenopause is like puberty's unwanted reboot. Only this time, there's no welcome to womanhood talk and zero guidance, zip, on what to do next. Here's what I know. Hormone imbalance doesn't just happen overnight, even if it feels like it. Yeah, biology and aging, they do play a big part, but our bodies don't just glitch out of nowhere. Something else helps to tip the scales. So the question remains, how did I get here? There are actually 6 root causes of hormone imbalance in midlife, and today I'm breaking them down one by one. So if you're ready to finally get some clarity on why your body feels so out of sync and what's really behind your fatigue or weight gain or low energy or mood swings, this episode is for you. Welcome to Are You There Midlife? It's me, Monica. Hi, I'm Monica Topetti, wife, mom, health coach, and hormone imbalance survivor. And I'm on a mission to help women in midlife balance hormones naturally without drugs, doctors, or divorce. Are you tired of dealing with heavy, painful periods that look like a crime scene? Are you sick of struggling with anxiety, fatigue, or brain fog that... What was I just saying? Are you frustrated doing all the things to lose weight but still packing on pounds faster than a real housewife changes Birkins? Girl, you are in the right place. Join me each week as I spill the tea on what to expect in perimenopause and beyond. From IBS to insomnia, bloating to funky body odor, I'll unpack all the weird stuff happening inside our midlife bodies, plus give you the latest science and holistic solutions to manage it all. So ditch the Spanx and hop on board the Hot Mess Express. Let's do this. Hey, beautiful. Welcome back to the show. So before we get into it, I want to share 2 things you can do right now if you're dealing with out-of-sync hormones and need help. Step number 1, take my hormone symptom profile assessment. Now, if you haven't taken this free assessment yet, I want you to go ahead, pause this podcast right now, and head on over to bit.ly/takemyhormonequiz. Because this assessment is a total game changer. First of all, it's going to tell you whether you truly have a hormone imbalance. Now, forget about what your lab work says. This assessment evaluates your symptoms, not some arbitrary blood level number that changes literally every day. Second, it's going to tell you exactly which of your hormones are out of balance, so you can start focusing on a solution that's right for you. Again, that's bit.ly/takemyhormonequiz or click the link in today's show notes. Step 2 is for you if you've already taken my assessment and you've been trying to DIY your way through your hormone symptoms. You know, piecing together bits and pieces of info from this podcast and Dr. Google or that TikTok influencer you've been following, and it's helping, sort of, maybe? But you know what? You're tired of trying to figure this out all on your own. It's time to get some help. Head on over to bit.ly/fixmyhormones now and apply to work with me. Look, navigating perimenopause and menopause and even postmenopause is tough. I get it. And I know you're used to kind of just figuring stuff out, right? because you're a doer. You kind of pride yourself on that. And you're all about getting stuff done and solving the problem. But this one thing is throwing you for a loop. It's probably the most frustrating part of your life. So how about putting an end to all of the guesswork? Stop wasting your time and money on a bunch of diets or supplements that don't work and trading it all for a clear, proven, step-by-step plan customized to you to help balance your hormones, get control of your symptoms, and feel like you again. If you're ready to just do this already, then go to bit.ly/fixmyhormones now or click on the link in today's show notes to see if we're a good fit to work together. Okay, so raise your hand or honk your horn if you're driving if you're in your 40s or 50s or even 60s and you feel like your body is betraying you. Same. Here's a fun fact that explains a lot. Did you know our bodies were never designed to last this long? I know, shocking, right? But it's true, because for most of human history, women didn't live long enough to deal with menopause. In fact, it wasn't until the 20th century, somewhere around 1911, 1912, that the average life expectancy for a woman finally exceeded 51 years old, the average age a woman reaches menopause in the U.S., which means our bodies are doing something they never needed to do before. Navigating decades of life without the steady flow of hormone production that we enjoyed naturally in our 20s and 30s. And even though women have been outliving menopause for more than a century now, the traditional medical system has still given us almost zero tools, let alone guidance, to navigate this transition. So I want to begin by telling you something most doctors won't. Hormone imbalances don't happen in isolation. Yeah, declining estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, that all plays a big role, but it's not just about biology and age. There are actually 6 key lifestyle factors that can turn shifting hormones into a hormone imbalance. And that can result in life-disrupting symptoms, faster aging, and even disease if left unaddressed. So you ready to do this? Let's jump in, beginning with root cause number 1, stress. Now, if there's one thing we don't need more of in midlife, it's stress. Because between careers and kids and aging parents and relationships and finances and a to-do list that never ends, relaxing kind of feels like a foreign concept. But here's the thing. Stress doesn't just affect our mood, it literally hijacks our hormones. Now, I took a deep dive into elevated cortisol levels and adrenal fatigue way back in episode 17, which I'll go ahead and link in today's show notes. But basically, when we're under constant stress, whether it's from a job, family obligations, finances, or even over exercising, our body goes into survival mode. And when our body thinks it's in survival mode, hormone balance is the last thing on its priority list. Our body prioritizes cortisol, that's our main stress hormone, over every other hormone we produce, which means our body will actually steal from other hormones like progesterone just to keep up with cortisol production. And that can lead to imbalances like progesterone deficiency and estrogen dominance. Those are actually 2 of the most common hormonal imbalances in perimenopause. Plus, if we're dealing with chronic stress, our adrenal glands, which produce cortisol, can become overworked to the point that they eventually burn out. That's why so many of us in midlife end up with adrenal fatigue, high inflammation, and blood sugar issues, all of which makes hormonal symptoms even worse. In fact, one study found that prolonged stress can elevate inflammatory markers by up to 40%, making it that much harder for our body to use our hormones properly. Bottom line, if we're constantly stressed out, no amount of meditation or ashwagandha is going to fix our hormones until we address this root cause. And speaking of things that can mess with our hormones, let's talk about root cause number 2, sleep. Our bodies need sleep. 8 hours of sleep most nights, to be precise. Now, sleep is not only vital to our energy levels throughout the day, but it affects everything from our metabolism to brain function to, hormone production. And yet, sleep in midlife can kind of be a disaster. Whether it's hot flashes, a snoring husband or dog, or both, or that 3 a.m. anxiety spiral about whether you left the hot curling iron on, if you paid the water bill, or if that weird mole on your arm has always been there, perimenopause does not make it easy to get the rest we need. And that's a huge problem because hormones and sleep are a two-way street, meaning sleep regulates hormones and hormones regulate sleep. Now, I took a deep dive into exactly how sleep affects our hormones, including tips on how to improve it, back in episode 26, which I'll also link in today's show notes. But basically, losing as little as 1 hour of sleep a night can throw off our delicate balance of cortisol, insulin, melatonin, estrogen, and progesterone, which makes hormone imbalance nearly impossible. According to a study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, just one night of bad sleep can raise our cortisol levels by up to 37% and reduce insulin sensitivity by as much as 30%, which in turn, of course, can increase cravings, slow metabolism, and trigger weight gain, not to mention its effect on our body's ability to regulate stress. Sleep is also closely linked to our estrogen and progesterone levels. As these hormones naturally start to decline beginning in perimenopause, the production of melatonin, which is our sleep hormone, decreases as well, which, incidentally, is why falling and or staying asleep becomes harder starting in perimenopause. So what's the bottom line? Less sleep equals more inflammation. And that makes hormone imbalances worse, as well as accelerates aging. It's like a domino effect where everything just keeps getting worse. That brings me to root cause number 3, a sedentary lifestyle. Now, we all know that exercise is good for us, but let's be honest. When perimenopause fatigue hits like a freight train, the last thing we want to do is lace up our hokas and hit the gym, right? But midlife is the absolute worst time to be sedentary. Why? Because a sedentary lifestyle doesn't just affect our fitness. It wreaks havoc on our hormones too. Studies show that women in midlife who are less active are 65% more likely to be overweight or obese. And spoiler alert, excess weight isn't just a number on the scale. It's hormonally active. What do I mean by that? Fat cells don't just store our fat. They also produce estrogen. So when we have too much estrogen in relation to our progesterone, it creates this perfect storm for one of the most common hormone imbalances in perimenopause, estrogen dominance, which can be linked to symptoms like weight gain, irregular periods, fibroids, even increased breast cancer risk. Make sure to check out episode 14 of the podcast for a deep dive into estrogen dominance, including some tips to help you move the scale. And that's not all. Exercise plays a direct role in balancing other critical hormones as well. For example, staying active lowers our cortisol levels. It actually improves our insulin sensitivity, plus it boosts our thyroid function. And all of that helps keep our energy levels up and our hormones balanced. But, and this is a big but not all exercise is created equal. What do I mean by that? The type of exercise we do matters just as much as the fact that we're moving. For example, if your cortisol is too high or too low, overdoing certain types of exercise can actually worsen your stress hormones. And if you're dealing with low progesterone, overdoing certain types of cardio can actually increase your symptoms of estrogen dominance. Same for low testosterone and an underactive thyroid. Bottom line, movement is essential for hormone balance as well as fitness, but it has to be the right kind of movement. Okay, so far we've talked about how stress, sleep, and exercise can sabotage hormone imbalance. But what about external factors like environmental toxins? Most of us don't really think twice about the products we use daily, like the shampoo we wash our hair with, or the nonstick pan we fry our eggs in, or the plastic wrap we use to cover leftovers. But here's the shocking truth. We are exposed to over 700,000 toxic chemicals every single day. Yeah, let that soak in for a second. From our personal care products, to the food we eat, to the water we drink, to the products we clean with. And these toxins don't just pass through our body unnoticed. They can really mess with our hormones in a major way by either mimicking or blocking our natural hormone production, disrupting our endocrine system, or overburdening our liver. So what are some of the biggest offenders? Well, there's BPA in plastics, which are often found in water bottles, food containers, and even receipts. Phytalates, which are found in anything scented, really, like perfumes, skincare, cosmetics, even in tampons. PFAs, which are known as forever chemicals, because they are found in nonstick cookware, waterproof clothing, food packaging. They pretty much stay in your body forever. And PBDEs, which are flame retardants that can be found in furniture and mattresses and carpets. So just how prevalent are these toxins and how exactly do they impact our hormone imbalance? You don't have to live next to a chemical plant to be exposed because these hormone disrupting toxins are everywhere. Do you drink water out of a plastic bottle? You could be consuming BPA, a chemical in plastics that actually mimics estrogen in the body. It's called a xenoestrogen, and it increases the risk of estrogen dominance, weight gain, fibroids, and even breast cancer. There are plenty of other ways to ingest BPA too, such as using plastic baggies or Tupperware or eating foods out of cans. In fact, BPA is so prevalent, 93% of all Americans have detectable levels in our bodies. Do you love your scented candles or daily perfume? You might be inhaling phytalates, which interfere with both testosterone and estrogen production and can cause low libido, fatigue, and muscle loss. Phytalates have also been linked to premature ovarian failure, better known as early menopause. What about your cookware? If you cook with non-stick pans, then you've likely been exposed to PFAs, also known as forever chemicals, because as I mentioned, they never leave your body, ever. These nasty chemicals have been detected in 97% of human blood samples and are known to disrupt thyroid function as well as increase our risk of high cholesterol, ulcerative colitis, and even kidney cancer. And what about cosmetics or hair care or skin care? Did you know that the average woman uses 12 personal care products a day? And that translates into exposure to more than 168 different chemicals, many of which that have never been tested for long-term safety. In fact, the U.S. has only banned 11 toxic chemicals from cosmetics, in contrast to Europe, which has banned over 1,300. Yeah. And when was the last time your doctor mentioned toxins as a possible root cause of your hormone imbalance? All of these toxins also overburden our liver, and that is a key organ responsible for detoxifying our excess hormones. When the liver is sluggish or overloaded, it just can't do its job efficiently, and that results in hormone imbalance and an increased risk of disease. Bottom line, toxins matter. And while we can't avoid every single toxin in the modern world, we can reduce our exposure by learning which toxins to avoid and safer product alternatives. For a deeper dive into signs your liver may need a detox, make sure to check out episode 39 of the podcast, which I'll also link in today's show notes. Root cause number 5 is diet. This is a big one. Okay, so we've tackled stress, sleep, movement, and toxins, but now we need to talk about something that affects our hormones every single day: food. Because what we put on our plate is either balancing our hormones or sending them into complete chaos. And unfortunately, the typical American diet isn't doing us any favors. Ultra-processed foods, well, they're loaded with inflammatory oils, preservatives, and additives that mess with our insulin and estrogen levels. Refined sugars, well, they spike blood sugar, trigger cortisol, and fuel insulin resistance, which is one of the biggest drivers of hormone imbalance. Low-fiber refined carbs, well, they cause blood sugar spikes that disrupt insulin and cortisol levels and lead to increased inflammation and hormone dysfunction. And let's not forget the low-fat myth. Remember, for decades we were told that fat was bad? But the truth is, healthy fats are actually necessary. They're actually crucial for hormone production. Our body literally makes estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone from cholesterol. So cutting out fat? Not such a good idea. And food isn't just fuel. It's one of the biggest culprits behind hormone dysfunction, inflammation. Because when we eat foods that trigger an inflammatory response, our body goes into defense mode and our hormone receptors don't function properly. I took a deep dive into inflammation and hormone receptor dysfunction in episode 57, which I'll also link in today's show notes. But essentially what this means is, even if we're producing the right amount of hormones or the necessary amount of hormones, our body isn't able to use them efficiently, and that can lead to hormone imbalance. A big contributor to diet-related inflammation is actually food sensitivities. Many of us are unknowingly eating certain foods that we are reactive to, foods that can trigger gut inflammation and cause a chain reaction that throws off estrogen, cortisol, and thyroid function, and wreaks havoc on everything from our energy to our metabolism. Now, if you're dealing with food sensitivities and want a list of so-called healthy foods that may be contributing to hormone issues, be sure to check out episode 6 of the podcast, which I'll link also. And it's not just about what we're eating, it's also about what we're not eating. Healthy fats, fiber, and key nutrients like magnesium and B vitamins all play a critical role in hormone production and regulation. So if we're avoiding fat, for example, because we think cutting calories will help us lose weight, we're actually missing out on the building blocks of estrogen and progesterone. Or if we're not getting enough fiber, like in fruits and vegetables, our body can struggle to eliminate excess estrogen, and that can lead to a hormone imbalance like estrogen dominance. And what about skimping on protein? We can never get enough protein. If our body doesn't get that essential amino acids it needs for hormone synthesis, hormone imbalance is sure to follow. Bottom line, food is medicine. It is. And it's one of the fastest ways to start balancing your hormones naturally. It's also closely linked with the sixth and final root cause of hormone imbalance, gut health. Okay, to recap, we've talked about stress, we've talked about sleep, we've talked about movement and toxins and diet. But if there's one system in the entire body that ties all of these together, it's the gut. Because here's the thing. If our gut isn't functioning properly, our hormones won't be either. Our gut is so much more than just a digestion machine. It's a hormone regulating powerhouse. And when it's out of balance, so are our hormones. One of the biggest ways the gut affects our hormones is through something called the estrobolome. Now, this is a collection of gut bacteria that helps process and regulate estrogen. When our gut is healthy, excess estrogen is broken down and eliminated. Awesome. 80% of our estrogen is actually metabolized in our gut. But when our gut bacteria are out of balance, and this is a condition called dysbiosis, instead of being flushed out, excess estrogen actually gets reabsorbed into our bloodstream, and this can lead to imbalances like estrogen dominance. And estrogen isn't the only hormone impacted by gut health. When functioning properly, our gut lining acts as a barrier, and that keeps toxins and waste where they belong, inside our digestive tract. But when that barrier becomes damaged with something called leaky gut, toxins, undigested food particles, and bacteria can actually leak into our bloodstream, and that can trigger chronic inflammation. And of course, as I explained earlier, inflammation can block hormone receptors, and that just leads to a whole domino of perimenopause symptoms. Gut health can have a huge effect on thyroid function as well, since our gut plays a crucial role in converting thyroid hormones into a form our body can actually use to regulate metabolism, energy, and our temperature. When our gut microbiome is compromised, this thyroid conversion process slows down, and that results in symptoms of an underactive thyroid like low energy, sluggish metabolism, and difficulty losing weight, even when we're thinking we're eating healthy and exercising. And then there's the gut-stress connection. Our gut and brain are in constant communication. So if we have an unhealthy gut, that can actually contribute to higher cortisol levels, which then can set off a chain reaction in our body that raises blood sugar, promotes insulin resistance, and encourages our body to store fat. It's a big reason why gut issues and stress often go hand in hand, and why stress management alone isn't enough if our gut is out of balance. So, there you go. 6 root causes of hormone imbalance in perimenopause and beyond. So what's the solution? Well, join me back here next week where I'm going to unpack 5 reasons why balancing hormones naturally in perimenopause and menopause actually works. Until then, sending you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and fewer hot flashes. Hey friend, can I call you friend? Because I already feel like we're friends in my head. Did this podcast teach you something, make you laugh, or feel less like an alien? If so, I would be so incredibly grateful if you could take just 60 seconds to rate, review, and subscribe. That is the #1 way you can thank me and support the show. Until next week, stay cool and keep away from sharp objects.